Hello everybody, Anthony's here, and in this tutorial mini-series I will talk about how I designed this grenade and how then I textured the high poly asset inside 3D code. You can find this grenade on my Gumroad, it's for free. I'll post the link in the description. All the tutorial is essentially time-lapse, is me speaking on top and explaining in depth what I'm doing. Okay, so I'll start just with the cylinder and try to set up a proper dimensions here. And I did actually check sizing for the grenades. It's like like 10 centimeters in height, 5 in diameter. And what I'm doing right now, I'm just trying to set up these major volumes so that I have like a volume for Detonator, a volume for other parts. So I was thinking about the body to start with because again, the whole final design you saw in the beginning, and it wasn't really something that I sketched out or anything. That was just some random. It was just like, how do I go with the flow? Like I wanted to play around with the grenade design. I didn't actually think that it will take that much time, and it became kind of pretty big project in that. So here I've got the regular symmetry. I'm trying different patterns all around. And to be honest, a lot of the patterns I've tried here, they work. They work pretty well. I mean, you can use it as a grenade design. So I was just like trying to just trying to find a lot of different options, trying to find a lot of different designs. And here I decided that I decided that I'll do a bunch of blocks. So I'm doing uh, so cut out a little cylinder, which I will then instance universally across a few more times. So now I have a whole bunch of instances, and anytime I do a cut, right, I have like you can see I have radial symmetry for the cylinder, and also like a Z symmetry or Y symmetry for up and down for both like sides, for bottom and top. That gives you like a lot of possibilities, a lot of um, ideas to try and check out how they look for the design of the grenade and design of the like just essentially just try different pattern designs, a whole bunch of patterns. And this was really the idea for me personally. I wanted to try. I know like a grenade is going to be a modular thing that where you can essentially try the patterns. And for me, the whole idea of this thing originally was about trying different patterns and see what I can develop starting with the pattern. Because there's quite a bit of randomness here involved, right? So, and if I were given some type of concept, I would try to, to do a set of steps that will help to replicate a concept. But here I don't have a concept, right? I'm coming up with this stuff on the go. Uh, that's why it gives you a lot of freedom, maybe even too much freedom. And it led to me experimenting for that for probably an hour or 2 hours, really, because it's all sped up at about 4x speed. And you can see I'm just constantly trying new patterns. Here it's doesn't show, but in most cases, if I had a pattern that I liked, I would save. I would save and then carry on to try a new piece. Yeah, so trying to unhide from different angles to get some peculiar structures, but way too peculiar. here I was thinking, okay, so I have some type of a pattern there. Maybe I'll try to create a frame outside of the grenade, some kind of just metallical frame. So I just have another cylinder which I already have. I had this one of those original shapes saved as my backup volumes, right? So you can see some of the volumes are hidden on my right. That's why I just unhid one of the volumes and started to play around, trying to see if I can design a frame on top, which is interesting. Again, given there's so many options here, like I just you start doing it and you just keep on doing it and doing it and doing it. You want to try it all. You want to really get really curious about how. What if I do that? How it looks? What if I do that? How would it look? What if I hide from that side or hide on the, from that angle? Um, do like thin unhides, like thin structures, thick structures, or reverse hidden stuff like that. So here I did a reverse hidden operation. Then every now and then I'll drop by into rendering tab and see how it looks. This particular project was all done inside 3D code, even rendered inside 3D code. Uh, it was rendered inside 3D code a lot because, well, I did that texture right, which I showed, and you can export color information of the texture in a .ply file, but like if I want to render it in KeyShot, KeyShot doesn't understand .ply. They cannot import that. So I ended up rendering inside 3D code. I mean, it gives a decent result, and I will talk more about it later. Uh, I also installed RenderMan. RenderMan, I rendered that stuff there, but I'm not yet good enough with the RenderMan inside 3D code. It just RenderMan didn't give me a better result than 3D code does, and it takes more time to render RenderMan inside 3D code. Again, trying a whole bunch of ideas, more like trying to get a more aggressive design, like with more like high tech Angular type stuff. Again, trying to unhide with straight lines, trying to unhide with ovals. And looking more like in more traditional kind of modular stuff. Traditional, I mean, something that's like comes from the modern day technology. And while I'm doing this, I'm almost thinking about potential logical implementation, like what it can be. In the end, I figured out that each module could be like snapped together. Like you have like magnets on bottom and top. You would like snap, boom, 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 each one of them, and you can make any type of explosive you want. So if so, it says using this magical explosive explosive compound called STNT. Um, so you can put like 20 of them together, use a different detonator, and blow them up from a distance. So essentially, the design I finished up later on was done like I did a laser mine. So you put a different detonator, there's a laser on top, and you can blow it up uh, using a laser. And I haven't uploaded yet, but I already recorded a whole bunch of videos about laser mine because it's pretty interesting idea. I had some interesting ideas there, which is slightly different. Design process there was different from here, and got ideas to talk about. Again, constantly trying different shapes, like trying stuff to hide stuff from the from the top, then trying to unhide stuff from different parts, from like different points of view, making some big elements. This circle and unhide gave me a quite a good idea later on. Essentially, it gave me the idea for little compartments to put the magnets in, little columns. But you can also see that I'm kind of starting to be a bit repetitive. I'm coming up with the same designs because I wouldn't say you're limited in your design capabilities, but it's more like the unhide tricks I was doing. They were all quite the same in the end, so I was getting a lot of similar results. Here, I just decided to combine the whole stack and take a look how it looks. And in preparation for this particular design, I watched I even watched like training videos with people throwing grenades, and I read about how they made, and watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos that I'm trying to understand how what makes a grenade. And I learned a funny fact is that in the army, if you take out a safety pin and in like in the movies they always put it back, right? So like they are threatened that they're going to explode the grenade, but in the army they actually told that if they taken out the safety pin, they should throw away the grenade because it's too dangerous to put it back. It can blow up. And obviously, I also looked at other concepts by other artists. And what I looked at Pinterest and ArtStation was also I didn't want to do stuff like it's been already done, so I didn't want to repeat anybody's design. I think in the end I did manage to succeed with that, so my design looks original. But it was quite interesting to see what other artists came up with for different ideas. So you see, this kind of shop design is looked way too alien, like way too high tech. Still wanted to make something that was at least mm, possible, like not possible, but a lot of the stuff is possible, but something that would be commonly done with today's tech or technology coming in, I don't know, 20 years. The usual near future stuff. I have depths here, limited depths, allows me to try again different design ideas. But I do feel like even watching it right now, I do feel like I was getting a bit stuck. That I was repeating the same process I've done just like minutes ago, and really at this stage, even yeah, I mean it's already looking good enough as a design at this time. I could have just stopped doing it and moved on to other parts of the grenade, like outside structure, the detonator. Yeah, you'll try a bunch of holes. So I had that structure from before, right? So I wanted to use it as a holder for the modules. And at the time, well, if you look at my final render, it looks like rubber. But at this particular time, I was treating it as a metal piece, like maybe thin metal part. I spent a fair amount of time trying to like design it as a metal piece. Right, just again hiding and hiding with like 4 point symmetry with XYZ symmetry, and doing the holes here and there. I was at this particular time I was fairly happy with the result and how it looked. Uh, Again, kind of power through code. Well, that you can do a whole bunch of designs in a matter of minutes, and then you can also disregard them later, without much, so, sorrow, because you're like, okay, just try something else. So here I'm using one, because I wanted to recreate this holder, make it a bit tidier and with a high density of voxels. I used this particular volume material that allows you to see through. Because if you go inside ghosting mode in 3D code, ghosting doesn't allow you to modify the actual mesh. So if I turn it into a volume, it's kind of semi-transparent. It allows me to see what's going on behind this volume, and allows me to do the same cuts as I did before. Right, just doing another holes, and framing the holes. So hiding and hiding constantly. Just my I'm probably the master of this one tool. Voxel is just my my go-to tool, and so it's pretty cool. I use it like 90% of the time. And this was essentially the first time I saw it. I was like, oh wow, this is the unhide tool is really something. That's when when I saw it. I was like, at the time I didn't have enough like knowledge to know how to operate it, because you kind of have to adopt this thinking about, you always thinking what's been hidden and what you can hide and what you can unhide. And that's kind of like, you know you add a couple levels to your thinking, designing process, and that does take some time to and practice to get used to. And again, constantly making like backup copies in case I hide few things, then I delete everything that's hidden, then I figure out that, oh, I actually need to revert to some parts back, and then I have to unhide the previous model and either use the previous model or combine the previous model and the new model, the stuff like that. So that's essentially the only way to back up, is to constantly do backup copies or save. Well, saving is obviously important just to save your progress, and even though 3D code autosave is really good, but inputting stuff from the models that's been saved is kind of a pain. It's nothing like in Blend. In Blend, it's really awesome. Like you can have 10 blenders open, and you can just copy paste all different parts from one blender to another, which is just an amazing feature. Here in 3D code, there is no such way. You have to go and use the import dialog window, which is a bit confusing to be honest, and input that stuff in. It's really not user friendly, that input dialog. Right, so here I'm trying to make the metal way thinner, but it gets so thin that you can see I start to get holes or really thin, funny mesh artifacts, like start to look black. I would say in 3D code, dealing with thin meshes is still an issue. Like, okay, like later, because when a designer think about different materials, it can be used for a particular object, right? And the one common material that used in almost any production is called sheet metal, and that sheet metal is, a thin piece of metal that you can bend here and there, and that's commonly used all over the place because you don't have to mill it, but it's super thin. It's like a millimeter thin, right, or less, like 0.7 millimeter thin. Uh, and dealing with thin meshes inside is really tough. You have to increase the voxel count like crazy. Like you have to deal with multi-million meshes. Oh, here, by the way, I decided that the grenade looked way too short, way too like tiny. Which now looking at it, maybe it was all right. But what I decided to do is I decided to add an extra block to that and just, you know, make it stretch it out and duplicate all the modules inside. And I'm trying to use different methods, just plain scaling up or using the pose tool to bring the guys down. And also trying to figure out what if I just duplicate the orange piece, put it at top on the top. Is it good enough or not? And I decided that I can just stretch it out and maybe fix that orange piece later. That looks kind of cool on some metal. It's probably what it looks like at the moment looks way more high tech than what I had in the end. Like this looks like a high, not near future but distant future device. It already looks like a bomb, some explosive. But I kind of leaning towards realistic designs at the moment. Well, again, it's not done for any particular project, so I don't know done for any particular game or anything like that. But I'm leaning towards practical designs just because they're harder to make and they require more knowledge of the modern day like materials. Also, trying different shapes. I thought maybe like tubular is boring, but if I make it like oval, then it looks better. I also didn't say one design process where I made it way more oval, but it started to look like a battery pack rather than a bomb. So I decided that okay, I don't want to look at, I don't want to make it, don't want it to look like a battery pack. All right, and here let me think about what am I doing. And by the way, if you stretch your mesh too much, you have to bring it back to uniform space. So because I changed the whole proportions of the whole thing, right? So made it way taller. I decided that maybe I need a different type of cover. And if it's taller, then you can do completely different design. So here I'm hiding the whole cylinder, then I'm unhiding just different parts. And I mean, that's pretty cool shapes right there. You know, they're like this X shape is very interesting. And I mean, imagine I just can't really imagine any other way of doing it that quickly and trying all these ideas that quickly. And again, my personal aim here is to iterate as much as I can and see what I can achieve, you know, by trying different shapes all the time. And that's why my like end design is so different from this design is because I decided to I iterated so much that I constantly change my ideas and perception about the final product. Again, these shapes I really like them, but they could be great for another type of design. It could be another type of a grenade, really. Oh, like holder. I might spend so much time on this particular piece. But I do a lot of random stuff which doesn't look often doesn't look any good at all. But in doing that, you kind of see the path for other ideas as well. This does look like an X-Men logo. It's kind of funny. Yeah, definitely like X-Men design. I really like the shapes. Like this particular one is so nice, so clean and powerful. Well, now it's no longer that, but started out as a really cool device. Again, it's just more like I'm trying the shapes and I'm thinking, well, I mean, they're kind of looking cool, but they don't really feel right for what I'm trying to achieve. So I have to abolish them altogether. These patterns are pretty interesting, right? Quite random as well. All right. Hiding and unhidden. I don't know. I have a tendency to make those type of holes, I guess, because it starts to look like really similar to what I had 10 minutes ago, or couple hours, not a couple hours, an hour ago in a real time. And you can see I have a whole bunch of hidden layers. Essentially, all the designs that I like, that just duplicated and hid. With this particular design, it looks like a bomb, like it can drop from the sky. Okay, I'm hiding everything, and I have this hidden volume that I can operate with. Again, so just trying to do it from a different angle, and obviously that didn't work out. So I'm just decided to change the amount of symmetry I'm doing. Uh, I don't actually know how many symmetrical parts I had before, like symmetrical. So I have to be careful not hiding too much, otherwise it's hiding everything. Also, I decided to uh, turn off the symmetry that was like biosymmetry. So now it's asymmetrical from the top and bottom. Before that, it was always symmetrical in four directions, like left, right, front, top, bottom up. Now it's just symmetry, just a regular double symmetry. Right. So now I can see the design language completely changed. So because I turned off the symmetry, I stopped trying all the same ways to unhide stuff. So I started to think about it a bit more than just trying to randomly get a good design. All right. Yep. Just trying to find that design language, design idea that would satisfy me. And it's quite confident when you know at any point of time you know that you can just revert back to the hidden volume. And once I actually made this particular whole grenade, I had a much cleaner vision of what I need to achieve later on. for an additional detonator, like with a laser mine, and I made that way quicker and way better grasp of what I'm trying to do. Here, it's actually starting to get closer to the final holder. So this, I like that part. I decided that, okay, what if I duplicate that, combine it together, and try to work with that. Again, here I'm still treating it as a solid metal object. That idea for rubber holder, rubber design came a little bit, well, about now, but it might be in a couple of minutes, really. Well, I figured it out. Oh, wait, well, I can actually make it, it can be a different material. It doesn't have to be metal. I can use it as, I can make it as rubber. Here I'm yet still treating it as a metallic object. And I started to do this kind of ridges. Essentially, I've hidden everything outside, so I have like a thin layer of hidden volume that I'm trying to unhide. And you can see I've done this particular hiding process I've done just a minute ago. And yeah, I wanted to try those ribs, to create those ribs. I'm trying just different symmetry methods. And then I figured out I have to use some snapping grid. And I need to customize it a little bit. Then after it starts to snap to the grid, and I think next step and snapping here didn't work for some funny reason. I think I actually didn't have snapping on. Yeah, you can see that I didn't tick the snap to 2D grid box. Okay, now I think I have it. So I just try this particular way thing, and then I'm like, okay, I need to hide everything outside, and now I can do a clean and hide like that. And I have this, and then I try to unhide other stuff. And this is where I'm really starting to realize it looks like a rubber holder. And that probably could be, yeah, this is where I apply the polymer rubber material. And I was like, oh, wow, it's actually just kind of just work out as rubber holder. It just was way too thin. And I decided to add some supporting structure for the sides. I mean, the sides were like its vertical columns were way too thin. Okay, I think I'll edit it later. And I really like this kind of functional look for the rubber holder. But also this rubber holder kind of put this whole design in perspective. This is where I kind of understood that I want to jump from it and go for a design direction which says more like realistic modern day design. So here I'm just have a cylinder and I want to start doing a detonator. And I just was looking to some funny shape to start with. So sphere was a good shape to start with. So here I know 100% is going to be a metal. And that's going to be like screwed on top of the plate using these 4 screws. The only one thing I kind of did, which is not perfect. This is a grenade, right? So you just throw it away. It's like only made for one time use. And I'm making this detonator is like a really complex metallic part that's kind of would need to be properly milled from a piece of metal, and that's kind of an over design, you could call that, uh, for something that's just a throwaway grenade. And also, when I was looking at this rubber holder, the part of the detonator was coming about, I definitely had a feeling that, well, the modular fragmental pieces, like this metallic modules, they look like they don't really belong to this particular design. Oh, here, okay, here I decided that I want to add some rubber inlining for the holder, which gives a really nice, accent, color accent. I mean, this particular part is way too thick. I only fixed the thickness of it later on, and then I decided that, yeah, I definitely need some kind of support on the sides. So I did this pattern, and yeah, I was looking again at these fragments. And I'm like, oh, they I have to kind of redo them all. Oh, this is a kind of cool bit that I kind of didn't have in the end, but I don't know why I didn't have it in the end. But you can get this really nice, interesting rubber elements, which you can see in the modern day electronic devices, like not electronic devices, but in cases and such like that, where you do these rubber infusions, that add extra bit of color. And I did a split from the top, so I can add another, so I could have another layer of material there. And then I'm just unhiding certain parts, just again trying to color the mesh. And going back to detonate. So I'm back to detonator. Okay, and I'm cleaning up the whole mess I have here. You can see I got a whole bunch of layers that I'm no longer using. Too many of them, and I had a feeling I'm kind of on a kind of straight line to the finish, where I'm finally got settled in a design, in the sense, in like finally got a hold of the design of what I'm trying to achieve. Before that, it was just like experimenting with shapes, and now I'm okay. I've picked the path to go with, and I can stick to it. So it was like a middle piece between the detonator and, well, modules. It didn't it didn't get in the final design because I essentially decided that's just, again, over designing, overdoing stuff, really. To be honest, with texturing, uh, like uh, 3D gives you this really cool possibility to try so many shapes. So at least, for example, I start to get a problem is that I over design and start to add too many parts and actual shape designs, shape variations. While I can really get away a lot with having super simple shapes with which I, simple as a cylinder, which I then can just, texture properly, use a stencil there, like some kind of decal, like that's just use the graphic design approach where I would use some logos and text to design the surface of a simple object, and that would contribute to the overall design of the prop. I mean, just having a free roll with the with this particular shape of the detonator. I have quite a few hidden layers that you could have just deleted by now. All right, so this is the, I think it's called the spoon. Can give it like a safety spoon. Essentially, the part that's is releasing the detonator. So the safety pin holds it together, the grenade. But at the moment you release the safety pin, you have to hold the spoon with your fingers. And when you throw away the spoon of the throw away the grenade, the spoon is, well, gets detached from the grenade itself, and it just flies away. And the spoon itself flies away as a disregarded object as soon as the safety pin is no longer holding it, and fingers are no longer holding it. And again, the spoon is traditionally made of some kind of sheet metal. Oh well, in this case, could have been done using a plastic. Haven't thought actually. I haven't thought about plastic. This is the first time I decided, like, while recording this, I'm like, oh, I could have actually thought about plastic. The plastic can be of really complicated shape, and plastic is cheap to produce, super cheap. So, like this rubber holder is okay. It's cheap. You can put it on and throw it away. No worries. Uh, and yeah, plastic spoon could have been an interesting one. I opt out for full metal spoon design, which again looked a bit too good for just a simple grenade which you use one time and throw away. So I'm trying different silhouettes for the spoon. And then I'm just checking the Google, and yes, it is called. It is indeed called uh, spoon pin, grenade spoon pin, and it is mostly done with a sheet metal. And I'm trying different designs for the lever. At one point, I was thinking about this protrusion, but I thought, okay, this protrusion is way too big, and I don't want to get rid of my nice spherical part right there. So I decided to keep it all kind of condensed to one shape. And while I was doing this, I was listening to a podcast. I think it was Joe Rogan and a guy who visited Amazon. It was really quite interesting. So while I'm looking at the recording of this video, I'm already thinking about about those Amazon stories and how he visited the tribes in the Amazon just recently. I don't unfortunately don't really remember name of the guy, but if you Google like Joe Rogan Amazon person, it will be pretty recent. Well, recent means February 2019. Maybe you're looking at, maybe you're watching it 5 years from now, and that's not going to be recent at all. Okay, so just been designing the silhouettes and of the pin of the spoon pin, and something that thickness of it was more or less all right. So I was just pushing it so it doesn't intersect with the grenade itself. Then I'm making it smaller so it can fit in between those detonator parts. I'm making the actual pin like wider so it's easier to hold. You can see there is there was a little cylinder at the top, right? There's a little floating cylinder. I'm sometimes 3D Code creates these little bugs that I have no idea how to fix. Sometimes if you drop it into surface space and back to voxels, it fixes them. Sometimes you have to duplicate it and then manually delete that floating piece out of existence. So I'm just getting those metallic, not metallic, like functional parts in place. So that's orange cylinder is for the safety pin. The black cylinder is essentially the part that uh, spoon pin is holding against. And when I was thinking about spin design, essentially you have so many options there. Oh, by the way, right now I'm doing the safety pin itself, the ring. Well, the ring is always just a spiral, right? But again, because it's kind of tricky to deal with this stuff inside 3D code, I decided to make just a solid ring. Solid ring is that kind of holding piece together, holding whole. All right. So that shape I've done this. I've hidden everything hidden. I've deleted everything hidden. Then I hid that part and unhid it with the circle. If that makes sense. So it's a constant operation, so like just subtraction and addition to hide and unhide parts in a sequence. In a sequence of stuff. Oh yeah, and I was talking about well the detonator, right? So detonator can be done in well took me some time to understand what I want to make. As detonators come in all kind of shapes and sizes, and you can think about it as well. If it's again a sci-fi design or like even if it's a near future design, there can be so many ideas there. It can be a wireless detonator, like so you throw a grenade and then you press the button on your remote and it blows up. So they actually don't need the safety pin or anything like that. It can be a detonator where you just push a few buttons, like in a certain sequence, like 1 2 3, 1 2 3, and then it's thrown away and it blows up. It can be a detonator where you break something and it's okay. That's it. You've broken apart and there you go. You throw it away. A lot of designs there and a lot of ideas. Right. So I did this working on the spoon, and I just found this cool shape that I really like. But again, it's a bit of a complicated shape in terms of it is a this is a grenade spoon. Again, it's looks like it's been slightly over designed, like too complicated for manufacturing essentially. But because I was trying to get something cool, I decided to disregard those ideas. I had issue with snapping right here. The grid was well, it actually snaps, but I was trying different ideas for this part, and it didn't work out all the time. And the spoon is a bit too thick. It's just way too thick. Even if it's got to be a milled part, it's still way too thick. It's just ridiculously thick. There will be a little quest to fix that thickness because it's not that easy. And while the kind of major shapes are there, you can see it's going to take a whole other hour to finish the whole grenade. Now it's going to be all nitpicking and just combining parts together, checking that everything is right, and again, still testing shapes, like testing different holes uh, for the uh, for the spoon. So I had this feeling that I really want to introduce some kind of hole in that spoon, the safety spoon, and I did, and then I could introduce like 100 holes. I found a funny trick using a stencil to hide a whole bunch of holes. And well, here I decided that okay, this is going to be my bottom part. Eventually I got rid of that. Everything that I've done that just went to trash, and I'll talk about that as well a bit later. You can see I've just done this process where I've hidden the top part, then unhidden the circles, and this is like one of my favorite parts of the whole design, where I had this really I'm getting this detonator looking like super complex, milled out shape. I was really happy about it. I wasn't happy about the artifacts. You can see, you see the straight lines here and there, the detonator, the orange one, and that happened because I smoothed out the mesh while I still had some parts hidden. Then I decided to unhide certain parts, and when and hid parts, it starts to look like that because you have a smooth mesh, then a solid unsmooth mesh that's been hidden, and you get those artifacts that are really, really hard to fix. I wasn't able to fix them all in the end. I mean, it's kind of not really noticeable that much in the end of the day, but it is annoying. So right now I'm doing the screws. I'm doing the screws by essentially, you know, splitting using the split tool, getting the circle out. For the screws, I use this, square design. Pretty simple, pretty common. And then rotate it slightly, and then like, instance it all a few times. And then I rotate each one of them slightly so they don't look like they're the same. So the screws right now they kind of finish really early, so I need to fix it later on. Okay, so I'm trying to fix that hole. I use the transpose tool to like merge it all together. Then I use the fill tool to fix it, and here I'm using the fill tool as well. It doesn't fix it perfectly, but again, it does a good enough job. And also, for certain parts like that, especially if you're going to texture that and you texture it with dirt, if you texture it with dirt, then it's not going to be visible at all. So I'm designing that little like spoon pin holder right there. And I combine it together with the detonator piece and smooth it out a few times, and then I smooth it. So I constantly smooth it just to see, just out of curiosity. It's F12 shortcut, and but I'm really wary about smoothing it because because exactly because I you can get this type of artifacts if you have stuff that's hidden, and also because you want to smooth the final model, you don't want to smooth it, then combine it with another hard piece, smooth it again, then combine it with another hard piece, smooth it again. It will lead to a problem that in the end of the day you get a super smooth, overly smooth model. All right, and here I had the idea that maybe I can make a whole bunch of not a holes. Here I was just trying to uh, get the ridges like ribs pattern like I had on the holder, but the problem is stencils, and this is a huge problem actually. That all the bitmap stencils that you have there on your right, when you use them, they create a super jagged edge. They are next to useless sometimes, unfortunately. If you use a vector and height tool, when you use a green circle, green rectangular tool, it's really nice and smooth. But if you're using a stencil, if you use a stencil circle, it's not smooth at all. It's actually a big issue. Here I'm trying to make that part of the spoon thinner, and it's it was a tricky part because it's hard to get the camera in the right place. But yeah, you have to try. Oh yeah, was my kind of final design when I used these holes. Like I really like it. I really like when done it. It looked pretty cool. So I was like, okay, this is what I want to do, and I made a whole bunch of holes. Again, it's power three code. This stuff, even if you have a live booleans and ZBrush or Blender, it's trickier than you just use a stencil and cut through the whole mesh and check it out. Like because I do so much stuff that doesn't go anywhere. You can see it yourself. There's so many shapes that don't go anywhere, uh, and I don't know which one is better until I try it. So the ability to try all these ideas fast is good. I mean, it's not just good; it's great. I made a little hole there in Detonator. They kind of it's pretty common to see it in on other spoon grenades. So I'm just a copy monkey. I don't know what that good for. Oh, ventilation or whatever. Try to combine this particular part with the spoon, and also adding duplicating it and getting it over for the safety pin assembly. I would say. doing small indentations, trying to fix that artifact. Well, inside the detonator is a bit of a messy part. I decided not to design it the whole way down. Right, I think I had a break and then I returned to it. I don't, I don't think I had any actually recordings that didn't get into the final video. Maybe I did. Maybe a few minutes have been lost, but generally, like 95% of the stuff I've been doing got into the final video. And again, originally I thought I would make it way faster, but I got caught up in in a fun design process. So again, try to make it thinner, but then I get the mesh that is way too thin. So I decided I actually have to cut from the sides, and that's what I do. Just trying to cut it from the sides, but then it's so easy to hit the major that part that stuck there a little bit, and trying different designs for this particular part of the pin. Again, it starts to look way too over designed. I'm doing these parts; they look like, oh no, they just way too complicated for something like that. That simple, way too thick. Oh, this was actually an improvement when I removed that part. I could have just actually run with that design as it is. Thinking like, should I make it smaller or just try a different shape? Again, this idea didn't go anywhere, but I tried it in a few seconds on a Vim. I'm like, okay, maybe this is a good idea. No, it's not. I carry on. So it's kind of curious to calculate how many design, I wouldn't call mistakes, but how many design experiments I've done it, how many shapes I've tried. I kind of like this particular top design in the end, and it was the final design in the end. Those like ridges on top, ribs, and I want to do the holes. So I decided that now I need the small holes. Small holes look cooler. And again, if you do it with the Voxel tool, okay, here actually decided to use the pose tool and see how it looks if I decide not to make holes, but if I decide to make, well, bumps, and bumps didn't look that cool, and I decided, okay, now the holes are the holes. So I'm using a Voxel, so essentially it allows me to unhide parts that I don't want to have holes on. But I also can accidentally unhide stuff that's been hidden, which is annoying. Sometimes I forget what's been hidden and what's not. And I want to make a different type of holes at the bottom. Okay, so here I've deleted the hidden, so I had to use the fill tool to fill the holes. Okay, trying to make this whole thing thinner by cutting from the angle. But it is tricky because it's a really complex object now. And jumping back to the front part, looking at it and thinking about how can I deal with it and combine it all. You can see, oh wait, no, 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 not that. Combine it now. I think had some type of artifact that I'm trying to fix using the older backup copy. Maybe a hole in those, in the spoon on the back, because that mesh is pretty thin right now. And you can see how thin it is at the bottom. So if I smooth this whole part a few times, it's gonna actually start creating holes after the smooth option, after the smoothing operation. So I wasn't actually able to run any kind of smoothing on this whole spoon because that would have essentially ruined the mesh. Right, dealing with the like holding part. Well, nobody's gonna see it really, but I wanted to understand the functionalities, so that's why I decided to do it. Here, I think I wanted to fix that bump in the front, which is actually was really hard, and I wasn't able to fix it at all. Well, I mean, I probably could have fixed it, but it was taking so much time that I decided that it doesn't make sense to do it because again, it's such a tiny detail that nobody's going to notice. And I'm using this gentle circle hides to fix certain bits here and there too, fix the appearance, and using a straight tool like spline tool to fill in that cavity using the fill tool. And you can see the even fill tool is a bit too intense. Okay, trying a different idea for the front element. I think it just was way too boring and like straight. I think here I decided to use 4 circles. Yep, 2 circles and 2 more to go. So I picked the symmetry from that point. Yep, and yeah, here go. Got 4 circles. I think I should have left them to be honest in place, but I didn't. In the end, I just hid them as well. Right, just going, just checking stuff, trying different materials out of curiosity, like a blue material on top. And somewhere here I was started to think that I need to redesign the fragments modules is there. Okay, here I was fighting with the issue. I was trying to combine 4 instances together, but if I combine them, then each instance gets extra 3 bolts. And well, problem is that an instance in operation is not something that easy to find. You have to go in the instance tool on the left and use it to uninstance stuff. You can't actually go into any kind of menu like geometry or symmetry or windows, any of those at the top. Or you cannot right click on the layer and uninstance it. You have to know where to find it, and I didn't know at the time. So this particular like orange columns. They're like how do you call them? Like there's something where the screws go in. But again, it was getting overcomplicated. So I had to, in the very, very end, I had decided to just push the detonator down. Not sure what I'm trying to do here. I'll probably just try different shapes, and definitely an overkill. Yeah, another couple of shapes. Sometimes I do this stuff because I'm thinking about other stuff, and I'm just a bit stuck. Thinking where to go, what to do, and I start to fiddle around these little things which are not really relevant to anything. So like thinking, what should I do next? But then I start to modify these little things and modify them, and I get overly focused on those little parts. I think also the symmetry of those bolts was off. Yeah, they're kind of off by themselves, and that kind of screwed up with me a lot. It kind of screwed my calculations. Also, I had to manually put those little columns in place, kind of eyeball them in place, which was kind of annoying and time consuming. Couldn't just use the symmetry and four-way symmetry on. I'm trying to fill that void with just another circle. And I want to combine all these guys together. Which I did. Not sure what I'm doing right now. I think I'm just evaluating the design, looking at stuff, and deleting stuff that I don't need. Oh yeah, I wanted to try different shape for the safety pin. I was like thinking like, well, like circular pin is just way too overused. Everybody's using circulars. Maybe I can try something like this, a triangle. And triangle is kind of okay. And I've seen actually a flash grenade, a modern flash grenade that uses 2 safety pins. One is circular, another one is triangle. But I've spent some time doing it, using like radial symmetry and such. But again, I didn't feel like it was looking right, so I decided that I just stick to the good old circular one. And I think I've seen the really cool concept where a guy drew a whole bunch of pins, all different shapes. So definitely feel free if you're doing something like that. You shouldn't be stuck with the standard shapes like the circular one or even triangle one. But here I've done it. I didn't really like it, and decided I don't want to spend any more time researching the spins. I was like, okay, the circle is good enough. So right now that circle, that ring is just hanging in the air. So I wanted to make another ring that would hold the bigger one, which they do in real life. So just placing it all correctly and accurately. So now we have this little hook. Okay, just looking stuff. And I think I took taking a break and got back to the safety pin. Trying to fix that little thing, that little issue. And tried and decided that whatever. Just decided not to do much. Okay, doing the pin holder, this circle, which is also part of the detonator later on, will be combined together. Then goes a hole. So there are a couple of springs inside this whole detonator assembly that just keeps it all in place. Each I didn't do because they are not visible. And I was thinking again of doing some circles there. This is a design element. I don't think they look fine just only because I already had four circles in front. I decided to not to do those four, not to have those four. Just tried to clean up this inside structure of the detonator. It was like more for my peace of mind, really. And now I decided also to add some structure at the bottom because I thought that it would have been visible, but it wasn't in the end. Yeah, just making it much thinner. this whole part. All right, looking at the model. Yep, just applying a different material to the safety pin. And just thinking what to do next. I wanted to add a bit more, I think, extra layer for this triangulated support columns, holders, and I wanted to make them all orange. And I'll actually not even support, but I was wanted to add like a inner sides that would look orange like that. And I think I spent quite a bit of time trying to find a better look. Okay, finally, think I decided to do is a module. So to combine all those guys, and the saved one is just my kind of reference copy. Then I use that column to create a cylinder to start with. And then I made this cylinder slightly smaller. Mhm. Also made it small in all sides so it fits better into the holder. All right, and here I kind of missed a big chunk of work, to be honest. But you can see, I tried the different patterns there again on the module, and then I figured out that an inner cut plus a column, which if you watched my at the start of the tutorial, I did a lot of that. This is just kind of one of those ideas that I used before. So cut, and then you see these columns. I thought about that if I place some kind of magnets inside, that could be modules, but because they were and I wanted to align them with the screws at the top. So I'm trying to change the detonator scale. So it's now going to so the screws are going to be aligned um, with the columns. And I could see that I couldn't align the detonator because I had to change the detonator. It was too hard. It was easier to change the module. And this is how I do all these guys. Okay, it's good. I actually, at least I show how I made them. You can see this is how it's been created. A really easy design. uh, But I like the whole idea. Then I made these smaller holes, just something to break the surface. And now I have my module. So I didn't look how I did like how it looked from the top. So I wanted to fix those corners like this. And yep, And then I made the holes essentially for those magnets. Then I have a little hole there in the front of the element. I was just rotating it to see how it looks from different sides, and I figured out that I don't need to rotate. All right, so by accident I used a fill brush there. That's a little circle. I did a little circle there. Then I was looking if I can do the hide and hide thing. Hmm. Not sure why I'm doing it. Like I've done the same operation like 50 times to be honest. Uh, because I'm still not unhappy about the little corner. But then I thought like, okay, whatever is when it's going to be baked down and painted on top, it's not going to be much of an issue really. So might have seen. So I hide it from the top, then I unhide it from the side, so that fills in with the layer. It fills in the middle layer. That's how I do all these holes, and just change the direction and guess hide them from the side, like just done right now. So this looks pretty good. Oh, not great, but interesting. Pretty interesting. Okay, that pattern could work, and then I decided to delete it all. Okay. So I decided just because it's a module that goes inside of each other, means that I can, I want to push one part down and lift another part, or like push the whole thing down, and that's what I'm trying to do. Just pick the right spot, smooth the selection. Masking is a bit of a hurdle in Sci-fi code. Like I've just done and managed to don't know how I managed to change the mask interactively. This is actually I've done it, and I need actually to find how I've done it, like to Google it or something. But there's not much information if you Google it. But by accident, I managed to interactively change the smoothness of the mask, and I don't know how to replicate it. Well, hopefully, I'll manage to replicate it later. If you know how to do that, please leave it in the comments. I should actually say it more often because people do reply about that, and they do reply to those questions, and they do leave information in the comments, which has been really helpful on multiple occasions actually when I was a little bit stuck, and it's certain stuff that's a bit just hard to Google, obviously. So I created those magnets. You can see the bevel that they're kind of slightly beveled. If you wondered why does it look beveled, essentially I did an unhide operation, so it unhid all of the cylinders. And when it does the unhide operations, all those hidden volumes, they get this kind of bevel, which usually is really annoying. But in this particular case, I knew it's going to get a bevel, and I was like, okay, it's going to be fine. It'll be just a nice bevel. So I'm trying to make this just a smart surface. Not smart surface, I mean, I'm trying to do a smart pattern like a similar module would have in real life. You see, I'm trying to recreate that particular part, but it's got a little notch in the front, and it's because it have two module is too low poly that it creates these little artifacts like that. and I'm trying to do it again. It doesn't work out. Still have that little artifact. I'm like, okay, whatever. Not sure why I didn't want to up the resolution of the whole mesh. Ah, well, I couldn't actually. If I upped the resolution, then I would have had all my stuff would have that's been hidden would be unhidden. But I mean, I could have raised it anyway. Could have found a solution for that. So I'm just picking different material for the magnets, so they look like magnets. When I'm thinking about this particular module, I'm thinking about maybe this some kind of metallic polymer, which some kind of smart thing, or maybe it's plastic, but not a regular plastic, some kind of metal or plastic alloy, something like that. So, and it's also I think about it as the modules came from a module and a holder and a detonator that came from three different manufacturers. That's just common, and so they don't have to be of the same design, right? They don't have to look like they've been done by the same company or the same designer, especially because it is a modular piece. And when I was doing another prop, laser mine, a laser mine looks completely different as well. Just like playing around gives a bit of freedom to play around with the parts because you just do it like it will have happened in the real world. Just bunch of manufacturers and a bunch of different appliances all put together. And certain, if you look at the military equipment, certain stuff can look really high tech, but other stuff looks really old and durable. Though in this case, everything here looks fairly high tech. Well, I mean, the rubber holder that I made, it looks like, I think, exactly like something you can buy from like Alibaba, like Chinese, cheap Chinese rubber holder. And I was pretty happy that I could see that. So I'm doing these holes, and in the end of the day, I actually decided to cancel them out all. I just didn't like how they looked. Maybe they weren't that bad, but kind of wanted to get some through the circles, but I was like, no. And again, the idea with the modules is pretty obvious. Like you got magnets, so you stick each other one on other on top of another, so you can create different types of explosives. And I was thinking when I was designing this particular grenade again, that at this point, that probably the module is the most high tech part of the whole grenade. So it's maybe it could be some kind of new explosives. Well, this imaginary reality, yes, it is STNT, and it comes from some advanced manufacturer. So everything that's done by this manufacturer looks really cool, and I'll start trying to figure out this over complex design for different parts. And here I was actually watching a TV show. So I do remember that stuff. I usually sometimes I will listen to a book. If I listen to a book and then I look at the model, I do remember the book I was listening to. If I listen to something else and I look at the stuff I've been doing, I would remember that particular thing, like a podcast, or if I watched a movie. How it gets anchored in your mind. Right, I really like this see, little bevel, you could say. I got it by accident, but I actually think it was a really, really cool one, especially when you stack it all together and it looks really nice. And here I was thinking about what kind of graphics I could put on the guys. So, okay, I want to draw this kind of pattern. If I hide, and then I use an oval tool, I can unhide in a pretty cool fashion. So you can see I got this like aggressive patterns in front. But it took me a lot of time to get the right amount of curvature, to get the right amount of or whatever. A lot of effort. I was kind of never happy with the amount of curviness I was getting. But yeah, okay. Don't think it's final. I think I've redone it a bit later because it looks a bit too thick. I mean, the borderline looks a bit too thick, like top and front. So yeah, I did the hide and unhide on the sides to get that little cut. I actually have if you're sometimes confused about my symmetry and stuff, I have a whole video about symmetry options inside 3D code. If you get it, like a symmetrical symmetry, I think it's called. This 3D code got a really powerful symmetry, well, tool set. So really easy to find nice symmetry, like from different angles. Make a model that's not actually topologically symmetrical. Make it a symmetrical model. I'll nail that. And here we go. Do what? Oh, yeah, just little cuts here and there. And look at them. So I activated some symmetry, so we have top and bottom thickness will be the same. And trying to unhide again using this oval and testing the look every now and then. I was a bit unhappy how deep the corner went, and I decided to hide those like triangle corners. Not sure it was a good idea or not, but you know. Trying to figure out what to do with this part because I didn't want to do the same thing, but at the same time didn't want to overcomplicate it. So yeah, triangles can always help, but they didn't in this particular case. So what about not using triangles? Okay, so I'm trying just to fix the corner parts by unhiding and making a less steep of a inner inner angle. And I got this kind of teeth, which did make it to the final design. And okay, the good thing about having some kind of surface, a little bit of free surface, without having too much of structural stuff around it, is that then you can use a stencil with some kind of sign like 1, 2, 3, 4 FBS, and then you can put it there and on the plate. Uh, if, for example, if I have these two vertical lines, then I cannot put it there. And I keep trying and keep trying and looking at what if I do that, what if I do this, does it look any good? And by doing that over and over again, you eventually get the idea what you shouldn't really do. But doing like it a few thousand times and knowing what works out better and works out not that well. So this particular piece is just like a rubber ring to hold everything together. And you can see there is a hole. I had a hole right there on one of those columns. What I did, I had to do. I either did a voxel to surface and then back, or I did a symmetrical copy. If I have those bugs where some polygons start to disappear, you either have to transform them from voxels to surface and back, or just essentially do a symmetrical copy. There, I don't know why they appear, how to deal with them, other than carefully doing symmetric copy from another side, or turning them into surface and back into normal polygons. So yeah, it's a bit tricky. All right, and there I deleted that bottom piece because it didn't make any sense now. It, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't have any functional sense, which obviously a lot of sci-fi designs do. They don't have any functional sense, but if it's all near future, you cannot want to put as much sense as you can. So you can see right now, I've got a hole that they have to fix somehow. I was hiding stuff, and by accident, I created that hole. And now I duplicated a module and I start to rotate it around, so I can combine these two elements, and thus I can fill the hole, but somehow this hole is not 100% symmetrical, and that I can't combine it properly. So that's I end up essentially deleting everything that looks like it's intersecting, except for those elements. And now I'll try to combine it all together and maybe use a fill tool um, to fix it. And yeah, I'm using a fill tool. It's the good radial connection. I like good. There's a lot of radial stuff, and I'm not too afraid of minor bumps. I know it's not going to be perfect, but really doesn't matter. Like first of all, most of the stuff that comes out of production usually not. I mean, comes up in like real life, manufactured can have minor dents, and it's kind of been an item that's been used around, so it's gonna have some kind of imperfections. So that's all right. And he had decided that uh, I really wanted to have less modules, and I think what I did in the end, I increased them by maybe 50%, something like this. I also wanted to have bottom part to protrude a bit further down, and that really helped to protrude it a little bit more. I just felt like if I have too many modules, it becomes a really complicated model. It's too many details in a stack, which I would still think that is a lot of detailing that goes along over the whole prop. All right, so but you know, even if there's a lot of detailing, you can still detail a bit more, like doing that cut at the top. And this is where I decided to get rid of the circles in front. And I didn't have any hidden copy left, so I had to essentially use the fill tool, and it gives you slight imperfections for the model, but what have you. Right, so I'm trying to fix that little thing there, and again, just next to impossible, to be honest, when I have it set, have it there. So in the end, I decided just to drop the matter. Tiny problems, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. Trying to make this whole mesh a bit thinner with the holder. I think there was a little bit of an intersection going on with the modules. I can see the modules are slightly intersecting with that rubber part. So it's either should I cut through the mesh and make the rubber holder less, or should I make the modules smaller? So now I can see I can see through the rubber holder, which is cool. Like I can see hole between the rubber and modules, and I decided to ended up making the rubber a bit big as well. I also like that rubber holder changes the silhouette of the grenade itself, because if I remove the holder, the whole grenade becomes a bit boring. It becomes just a cylinder, really. and this rubber holder gives it a bit more of a cylindrical, not like bulging out silhouette, which I quite like. So here I'm experimenting with the rubber like inlining and duplicating the mesh and then scaling it up, duplicating again, scaling it up to get that top rubber bit, the orange bit. And yeah, trying different colors. So I was now, I'm still not 100% sure about all of the color combinations there. Uh, I must have thought that rubber overall. Oh no, I did a split. So I wanted to have that inner inner color, that little inner color accent, and this splitting from the top will definitely helps. So I wanted to create a new shader that's not going to be black, but we're going to be kind of blackish, dark. I'm going to have dark color, dark rubber color, and okay, I've done that one. And I wanted to add a bit more circles on the bottom of this whole module. That's why I started to hide and then unhide my regular process of doing stuff. And I also wanted to add a couple more magnets. Well, I would add a ring magnet, and the middle part would be more of a pin that kind of, if it gets stuck upon, and it detonates the whole thing. And then if you push on one pin down, then it goes down the whole way. Boom, 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 and everything gets activated, and gets blown up. Well, I mean, if the first module gets blown up, then everything else gets blown up in a chain reaction as well. So I did the same thing where I used the unhide hidden. I did end up, you know, using a cut tool on that nice bevel because I was like, oh, whatever. I would just cut it and then smooth it a few times to get the bevel. This is my regular process. And there goes my little pin, which I wanted to assign a different color immediately. And when I hit the objectify hidden, it also objectified all other elements which I need now to delete. I'm just trying to adjust this rubber band. Put it in place. And I spent a bit of time trying to redesign this bit, which would be gone later on anyway. Again, I thought it was just overcomplicating of the whole design, because at the end of the day, the grenade should be a bit more simple than that. So I at least got rid of that this middle bit between the detonator and the modules. But overall, it's nearing the end. So, and don't think I'll have any other. Don't have much stuff to add or remove, really. And that bit in the middle is hardly visible at all. I'm just trying to ideas for the spoon. I think that was fine, actually. Yeah, this is something that I kept in the end. The symmetry panel got snapped to the side, so this gets really annoying if it gets snapped. It's a bit hard to unsnap, and then it starts to occupy so much space. And trying different materials and how it looks with that. This was about where I was pretty happy about the model, and in the next maybe like a minute, I'll just push down the whole detonator down. But guys, thank you really much for watching, and well, the grenade is available on Gumroad. Just get it there and check out the next part. It's about really awesome texturing and sets 3D code where you don't need a topology or anything. You just paint on the high poly model using glossiness and normal and and color channels. It's just really cool.